Hi everyone, welcome to the second video, and this is probably the most important one because it gives you the actual study techniques. We talked before about the different types of pre-study things that you have to get to before you even start studying. So now we're on to the big guns, we're on to the study techniques. So here we've just got a variety. I got the most of them I got from the girl that was dux of my school the year above me. She came back and she gave us a talk about some techniques that worked for her. So I tried them and I did quite well at school, and I still study even as an adult because I enjoy it so much and I'm pretty good at it. So really, once you get good at something, you like to do it, you enjoy doing it, and hopefully when you undertake these study techniques, you will become very good at studying too, and it'll be easy for you. And remember, it is a skill that you practice. So let's keep going. So just remember, there's different techniques for different subjects. Most of these techniques work for subjects like English and humanities that require a lot of reading and writing. They won't work so well for maths or science. Maths, I know the best way to do that is to do as many maths examples as you can in each type of question. That's not going to help you as much in English or humanities. In English and humanities, there's a lot of things for you to memorize. So a lot of these things are going to help you with memorization. Remember as well that there's different techniques for different people. Some people are visual learners, some people learn from kinesthetics, some people learn from listening to things over and over. There's a variety of techniques for different people. And the way that I would highly suggest you to do is to do as many of them as possible, and whatever you feel works for you, keep going with it. And if you feel like it's not really getting you anywhere, that's fine. Drop it and do something else. You will feel which one is working for you and which one isn't. Try them all. There's no harm. The worst that's going to happen is it's not going to work for you, but it's not going to, make you stupider. It's not going to take away what information you do have in your head. So it's a win-lose. It's not lose-lose. So 50-50. Try it anyway. Alright, so we talked more about writing physically, so that you write more and that you get better and that your wrists, strengthen up. We talked about that last video, so I'm not going to talk too much on that. If you want to have a view of that, I'll put it in the description box. But for now, just know that lightning writing and weights on pens are really good as you are writing during the year, to write during the year so that you are used to the physical act of writing. So let's go straight to the next point, which is your new best friend for the year is the syllabus. Try to use the syllabus and try to make it a live document. What I mean by live document is annotate it, tick it off, turn it into checklists to make sure that you've got notes for every part of it. What I try to do for my students is that I try to create the syllabus into questions. So basically all you do is you go through the checklist, sorry, you go through the syllabus and you turn it into a checklist by just turning it into questions or turning it into like literally a checklist, and you just tick it off as you go, or you use it as your subheadings. So those dot points become subheadings or questions that you enter your notes under, and that way you know that if you don't have a lot of notes under a certain section, you can write more notes there or find more notes there. Okay, so textbook reading. I want to make a video just on how to read the textbook to sort of model it for you. But for the meantime, you have to ask yourself, how do you use your textbook? I've met students who don't even open the textbook. The textbook is really important because it gives you a good starting point. It should not be the end point, but it should be a good starting point for you it gives you keywords and definitions, and it's really important that you use them. The textbook is usually written in conjunction with the syllabus, so you don't have to go back to the syllabus and check their um their definitions, but you may, like if you're very untrusting of the world and that makes you feel better, do it. You will find though that the keywords and the definitions in the textbook are that of the syllabus, and so you know that you're getting the correct keywords and definitions. Sometimes keywords and definitions that are used in a subject aren't the same as what is used in everyday talking. So you just got to make sure that you are using the keywords and definitions that are used in the syllabus in your subject. How many times did I say keywords and definitions in that last 2 minutes? I deserve an award of some kind. Look at tabs. So use post-it notes and put them in the important parts of your textbook. That way, when you come to study, you go straight to the section of the textbook that it's in. So if you have a section in your textbook and you name it after the chapter or after whatever key word that you're looking for, just looking at your tabs will allow you to find that easier when you are studying again. Homework. I really suggest that you do all of the homework and activities that your teacher gives you, because the reason that they give it to you is so that you can practice a certain skill. Make sure that your homework is up to date and all your activities are up to date, and consider it a form of studying, because studying is really just practicing the skill that you need for that subject, and that's what homework is as well. It's practicing that skill. So, I mean, if you're really struggling for time, you can take out the time of the homework and activities in your study time. I wouldn't suggest that, but if you're really desperate to make up time because you have other um, things going on in your life that are taking up time, that's fine. Past papers and drafts are an excellent way of again practicing that skill. I highly recommend that you do past papers in exam conditions. So you sit down, the 3 hour exam as you would under exam conditions. This prepares you for the time frame that you have to write in. There's no point becoming an excellent writer of your subject in 10 hours, writing the most perfect essays in 10 hours, because you won't have 10 hours. You've only got a certain amount of time per section, so you need to get used to writing in that time frame. I used to make my teachers mark my past papers. I used to have a folder where I kept all of my past papers, and I used to keep them together so that the feedback that my teachers give me I would have, and I could physically and visually see whether or not I've become better at something or whether I've retained the same mark. So if I keep getting 14 out of 20 in a subject, I'm going to keep going until I get 15 or 16 out of 20. If I've already jumped that and I'm getting 18 out of 20, I'm going to say, all right, I could take a break in this and I can look at another subject or another section of that subject. Doing drafts is really important when possible. Your teachers will love the fact that you are practicing, and they will be happy to give you feedback on it. So really take advantage of that. Keep everything you do as notes for the HSC. Don't, or the SATs or whatever you're sitting. Don't think of homework or classwork as just notes, but you got to make separate study notes. Use your notes, use everything you've done, use your past papers, use even your past exams that you've sat. Keep them as notes and use them to highlight and to annotate, and use them again as live documents. So as I was saying, I kept a folder of loose leaf things. My brother though was better. He kept other exercise books that he would do his past papers in. That way he had them available to him in one place. He didn't lose them. Really, it depends on you. I liked the loose leaf because it allowed me to also keep other sort of loose work that I did throughout the time. But books are really good for the people who aren't organized, and that's where I fit right now. I'm not organized at all, so now I prefer books. You can also get books with folder parts. I'll probably do like another video on that, but you can actually look for books that have a sort of cardboard, or you can even attach cardboard to it. Just attach it from the bottom, and there you go. You've got a place to put your loose leaf things. I highly recommend checklisting the assignment. I learnt this one the hard way because, especially if an assignment has several parts to it, or the question has several parts to it, I turn it into a checklist and I make sure that I've checked off every part of it. When you do this, you make sure that you answered all the elements of the questions. Sometimes you look at a question and you think, oh, okay, this is what I got to do, but you don't realize that it's asking you for two or three other things on top of what you think. Checklisting the assignment is really important. I can model that for you as well if you like, but basically it's about ticking off each part of the question as you go, or turning the questions into a checklist and just crossing them off as you go. Actual ways to study, we're looking at shortcuts to memory. So you are looking at acronyms. So north, east, south, west, never eat soggy wheat bix. It's just things that will help you remember things easier. Acronyms are really good because you've got a shorter way of remembering what you are talking about. Your 9 times table, I don't know if you ever learned this as a child, but if you put out your hands in front of you, go to your third finger from the left and put it down, and look, that's 27. And if you do that with all the numbers, you actually get your 9 times table. And look, you just learned about the 9 times table as well with this video. Isn't this awesome? Let's go to turning things into songs. You'll find that most students can memorize songs really well, but they don't necessarily memorize slabs of information. So choose a song or like a chorus that you remember and get your quotes or your formula or whatever it is that you need to remember and sing it along to those songs. This especially works if you parody a song, and it'll help you remember that song. Putting post-it notes around the house is an excellent idea that I picked up from the ducks of my school. She basically talked about putting the quotes or the formulas or whatever it is around the places in the house that you go to often. So if you go to the fridge often, or if you go to the sink to wash your hands, putting them around those areas. Every time you wash your face or your hands, every time you eat, you will remember that quote or that formula. Teaching your pet, don't feel like you need to get a pet just for that part of the studying. A little sibling or a friend will do for the purposes of that. And the idea is, if you are able to simplify your idea, you're able to articulate your ideas, you're more likely to remember them. Another alternative, if you don't have a sibling that you can force to be your guinea pig, or a pet that you can force to sit and listen to you, and this will actually be a nice thing of you to do, is to get someone in the class that you know doesn't really understand certain concepts and to teach it to them. That way you will be helping them and you'll be practicing your ability to articulate your ideas on the subject. You've always got to have an argument no matter what subject it is. So this is really good for you to be able to practice arguing your argument for the subject. So the next thing that we are going to look at is summarizing again and again and again and again. This is good for some people who like to re-emphasize certain ideas. Something that I was talking about in the last video as well is when you're summarizing, using a light colored highlighter the first time, because the first time you read something, everything seems important. The second time you read it, so say the first time you use a yellow highlighter, the second time you read it, use an orange highlighter, the third time you read it, use a pink highlighter, and then use a blue highlighter. Then on the day of the exam, when you are revising, your eyes will be immediately drawn to the darker color. And the darker color will be what you read just as you're going into the exam. You don't want to revise the whole thing, the whole subject before an exam. You just want the main parts. So really the main parts will come to you after summarizing something for maybe the fifth time, because that's when you're going to be looking for the really important things. You already know it, you already understand it. You need to be looking at, the fifth reading of it or whatever. So another thing is listening to your notes through a recording. I used to just play my notes in the background. So me reading quotes from the text or reading, formulas from the background. I would just be doing it as I'm cleaning my room or as I'm, whatever around the house. So that's as you're driving, whatever. So it's really good that you just have it in the background. I have heard of some people who say play it in your sleep. I didn't. I tried it. I didn't find that it made any difference to me, but you can also try that. Supposedly scientifically that works. It's not gonna hurt. It's not like I, still have nightmares about, a formula. It's do it, but don't put a lot of hopes in that one. You will have to be awake and alert for you to learn. So other things are turning your notes into flowcharts, visuals, graphs, tables. The idea is that you want to summarize the most important points. And by those sorts of methods, you are seeing visually a summary of what you are trying to remember. So these things help. Role plays are really good as well because you will remember the act, whether it's you that is in the role play or whether it's you watching a role play. If you've got a group of friends that you study with, for example, and you role play a certain thing, then you're more likely to remember it because it's happening in front of you. This could be something for you to think about. The movies are a really good way of remembering texts. I do not in the slightest recommend you to watch a movie instead of reading a text. A lot of the times the movies are different than the text, and lots of students get caught out in that because they make a reference to something that happened in the movie that didn't actually happen in the text. You don't want to be one of those students. But what you can do and what helped me is watch as many versions of your text as possible. That way you are more likely to remember the quotes, you are more likely to remember the characters, you will just be able to remember the plot line a lot better as well. So I highly recommend that if you have a text that's been made into a movie, to watch the movie as well as reading the text, of course. And with that, we come to the conclusion. I really do hope that helps. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and don't forget to talk nerdy.